As of late, it seems like Fundrise is a really popular topic that's been floating around the internet. If you haven't heard of Fundrise before, it's essentially just a company that allows you to invest in real estate 100% passively. Today, we're gonna talk about the ins and outs of Fundrise, what it is, how it works, and all the different pros and cons of the platform. If you're new here, let me introduce myself. I'm Bryce. I make videos here on YouTube talking about passive income, investing, and especially real estate. If videos just like these interest you, be sure to subscribe down below for me, and as always, give me a thumbs up because that really helps me out. Okay, so getting right into it, as you already know, well, I guess if you're new here, you may not know, but on this channel, I talk about everything real estate. And as part of that, you should probably know that my wife and I have a fairly decent number of rental properties. All of these rental properties, we don't have a property manager. And if you're curious to hear about why that is, definitely click on the link down in the description below where I talk about that in a different video. While managing these properties does require some work on our part, I mean, we have to deal with contractors and repairs, collecting rent, and everything that's involved with that, I'd still classify it for the most part to be passive. But when I first heard of Fundrise and heard that it was a way to invest in real estate that is perfectly 100% completely passive, needless to say, I was interested. So today we're going to talk about Fundrise, like I said, but I want you to keep in mind that my perspectives are coming from somebody who already owns physical real estate. And so just remember that as I talk about the various points in here, I'm looking through that lens. And as I go through these things, if you're interested in investing with Fundrise, definitely be sure to use the link down in the description. It's an affiliate link. It helps out me, it helps out the channel, and there's no extra cost to you. So we really appreciate that. So first and foremost, what is Fundrise and how does it work? How Fundrise works is essentially they take money from people just like you and me, they pool it all together, and then they buy physical real estate and other investments that are backed by real estate all across the United States. And the way that you buy into these physical properties are through the form of something called a REIT. If you haven't heard of a REIT before, it stands for a real estate investment trust. If that sort of a thing is new to you, don't worry, it's really not that confusing. It's very similar to a mutual fund or an ETF if you're familiar with that. It's essentially the exact same thing. A REIT is just kind of a bucket. It's a bucket that contains lots of different investments, and the little investments inside that bucket are the physical properties or the real estate that you're buying into. So as you buy this REIT, you're actually spreading out your money across all of the different things that are housed and contained within that REIT. The benefit to you is that it's just for diversification. It helps you to spread out the risk across all of these different properties. And so if something happens to one or two or three of these, because your money is spread out over dozens, maybe even hundreds of different projects, the likelihood that something wrong is going to happen, something bad is going to happen, is not very likely. Fundrise claims that its investors can expect returns between 8.7% and 12.4% annually. And if that's really true, if those returns actually are the case, that's actually pretty impressive considering that most people can expect anywhere between 7 to 8% in the stock market. So really anything above and beyond that is fairly impressive. In this video, I'm actually not going to talk about the returns that I've seen so far through Fundrise because I'm saving that for a video that's coming out next week where I talk about my experience with Fundrise after 1 full year. So keep an eye out for that. One of my favorite parts about Fundrise, and one of the things that really attracted me to it in the first place, is that there's a very low initial investment that's required. You can get started with Fundrise with as little as $500. With a lot of mutual funds, for example, they've got minimum requirements where you have to invest at least $3,000, sometimes $5,000 or even $10,000 to get started. And so if you're just beginning your investing journey, a lot of people don't have $3,000 or $10,000 to invest. So that's the great thing about Fundrise. You only need $500 to get started. Fundrise has two main plans that they offer. One is the starter plan, and that's what I said before, where you can get started with as little as $500. But to get part of their core plan, you have to invest $1,000, but that gives you a couple more options. You can choose if you want dividends now, for example, or if you're expecting to make more money over the long term, you can choose their appreciation route and see your money grow over the long haul and potentially make you more money in the end. Either way, whatever you decide, it's customizable for you and you can select whatever you're searching for. Let's talk about the pros and cons of the platform, and once I go through these, I'll actually take you through a demo of Fundrise, walk you through the interface and the dashboard and show you some of the different features. But like I said, let's get started with the pros. Pro number one is something I've already talked about, and that's the low initial investment. If you're just starting out investing, you don't have a ton of money, but you kind of want to test out the platform, this is what's so great about Fundrise. You only need $500, but you do get that added benefit of having it a little bit more customizable if you do start with $1,000. When I started using Fundrise, I did invest $1,000 just because I did want that added option, but I don't know that it would be that big of a difference if you just started with the $500 regardless. Pro number two that I see is Fundrise allows you to invest in kind of a really expensive asset class without having a lot of money invested. And so what I mean by that is typically, like with the rental properties that we buy, unfortunately, you do have to have a fairly significant amount of capital upfront to purchase the rental property in the first place. Sometimes you need $20,000 or $50,000 to buy these buildings. And like I said, if you don't have a lot of money to get started with, it's kind of hard to break into that real estate space. Now with Fundrise though, and this kind of goes along with the low minimum requirements, you don't have to have a lot of money to actually purchase real estate. Benefit number three that I've seen is Fundrise has fairly low fees. Diving a little bit deeper into the documentation, I found that Fundrise charges 0.15% for the annual servicing fee and 0.85% for the annual management fee. So in total, that comes out to 1% annually that you'll be spending on fees. And while it is just a little bit higher than you get with like a Vanguard ETF or something similar, it's not really that expensive. And for what you're getting, I'd say that those are fairly expected fees. I wouldn't go too crazy over that. Another pro that I see is low risk by diversification. When you're just starting with $500 or $1,000, you're taking your money and you're spreading it across 50 or 100 different projects. You're taking all that money and putting a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit there. And that's huge because typically, like I shared before, if you're buying a rental property or something like that, you're taking a significant amount of money, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 or more, and you're dumping it into one single building. And so that's really risky if you don't know what you're doing, you've never done this before, or something happens with the economy in that area. If your one investment goes belly up, you could lose potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's a huge benefit that I see, because even with Fundrise, let's say even 5 or 6 of your projects go belly up, it's okay because you're still gonna make significantly higher returns because your diversification is spread out across all of these different projects. You'll still come out ahead in the end. And the very last pro that I'll mention is the fact that this truly is 100% passive, which is not really the case with physical real estate. With Fundrise, you're not dealing with tenants, you're not collecting rent, you're not dealing with repairs or with contractors, you're not getting phone calls in the middle of the night, you're not dealing with leaky toilets or sewage all across the floor. I mean, there's none of that. Really, truly, this is 100% passive. You put your money in, you sit there, you wait, and you get your returns. I mean, I really don't know what's better than that. Now, let's talk about the cons, and there are 2 main cons that I see with Fundrise. The first being taxes. Now, this isn't specific to Fundrise. Whether you make dividends with Fundrise or in the stock market or anywhere else, you're still gonna get taxed on those dividends. There are 2 different types of dividends, and they're taxed and handled differently. There are ordinary dividends and there are qualified dividends. Ordinary dividends are taxed at your normal tax rate. So the same tax rate that you make on all of your income from your W-2 job. And qualified dividends, on the other hand, are taxed at the same rate as long-term capital gains, which is typically 15%. Unfortunately, the dividends that you will receive from Fundrise are going to be taxed as ordinary dividends, which I see as kind of a bummer. Con number 2 is with Fundrise, there's very low liquidity, which there shouldn't be, this shouldn't be a surprise to a lot of you. If I go out and buy a rental property, it's not the same as buying a stock. I can't just go and sell that property in the matter of 10 seconds and get some money back like you can in the stock market. And so because your money is backed by physical real estate, in Fundrise, it's no different. Your investment is not very liquid. And now because of that, it could take a couple months or even 6 months for you to pull your money out of Fundrise when it comes time to do that. So the reason for that is because Fundrise is always buying properties. They're always buying projects, especially projects that are kind of run down so that they can fix them up and sell them for a profit, hence how you're able to make money on these projects. Now, let's say, for example, that they go and buy a project in Brooklyn and your money is tied up in 2 or 3 of these different projects in Brooklyn. If you put in a sell order to pull your money out, your money is tied up in this project. It's already been spent trying to renovate this property and get things, you know, really nice. And so there's no way for them to give you your money back until that project sells. So you would have to wait until that project sells before they could cash you out and give you your dividends and everything like that, give you your initial capital back. So again, it's not really a huge con in my mind because, like I said, real estate in general, just the asset class as a whole is not very liquid. But just keep that in mind. If you're putting in $1,000 or $5,000 into Fundrise, but you're going to need it 2 weeks from now, definitely don't expect to see it that quick. And 2, this shouldn't be a surprise to you, but if you need your money 2 weeks from now, you shouldn't be investing it at all. I'm gonna put another video down in the description where I talk about that and how long you should keep your investments situated for you to make actual fairly good returns. So check out that video. Okay, so now I want to take you through an actual demo of Fundrise, walking you through the interface and just kind of show you how the platform works. Now, first off, right off the bat, I do want to say I love Fundrise's interface. I love the blue dashboard. I love the graphs. I'm kind of a sucker for like really good user interface. And Fundrise absolutely passes the test. Okay, so remember where I said Fundrise has 2 main plans? They've got the starter plan for $500 or the core plan for $1,000. This is what I was talking about before. So you can see here, you've got the starter portfolio, $500 minimum, 90-day satisfaction period. And then if you scroll down here, they've got their core plans for $1,000. And this is where I talked about the 3 different options that you have. You've got supplemental income, balanced investing, and long-term growth. So depending on what you want, if you want dividends right now, right off the bat, you can choose supplemental income, or maybe you don't care to see your money for a long time, 3 to 5 years, and you really want that appreciation, then you would probably want to choose long-term growth. When I put my money into Fundrise, I choose the balance investing because I didn't really want to put it in a long-term, but I also didn't need dividends super regularly. So that's why I did balanced. So from the main dashboard, you can see, of course, your growth over time. These little bumps that you see right here, right here, right here, those are when you get your dividend payout. So that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. As you scroll down here, you can see that I am currently involved in 126 active projects, which again, I love. I love the diversification that comes with this. And even cooler, if you click over here on the projects tab, this physically shows what you're working on, what projects you're involved in, and the different projects that they've spent your money on. So we can see that right now, I guess it looks like 3 weeks ago or so, they acquired a new project and my money was invested on this apartment building in Buda, Texas. You can see that it's structured by debt, that it expects about 8.8% annualized return, and it's got a C-class rating. And if you notice here that most of the projects that I'm invested in are like B- and C+ class investments, which that's fine with me because that's what I typically invest in anyway when I purchase my own rental properties. I buy in C-class neighborhoods, so that's to be expected. So you can come down here and you can just see, cool, so we bought an apartment in Austin, project in Portland, Oregon is starting to be completed and they're ready to exit that. So it's really cool that even though you're not really doing any of the work, they keep you involved, they keep you up to date, and you can see what projects you're actually invested in. As I come up here, you can go to the performance tab. You can see your year-to-date returns, you can see the account value, you can see all the different facts, you can see the different REITs that they've currently put you in. You can see that I'm in an East Coast REIT, the West Coast REIT, growth REIT, income REIT, a couple different things like that. And you can also come in here to your transactions tab and you can see all the different dividends. Again, you can see that 1 year ago, I deposited $1,000. And then since then I got a dividend, it was reinvested and got another dividend. It's been reinvested, dividend, reinvestment, dividend, reinvestment. And so it's actually a really slick platform. I have to say I'm pretty happy with it and impressed with it overall. There's not a whole ton that really I need to look at on here. It's got a nice dashboard. I like that it gives me the information that I need, but it's not like I'm coming in here every single day or every week even to look at this. Occasionally I'll come in here and see how many projects I'm involved in, what my dividends are looking like. I'll get an email every time that I do make a dividend, but for the most part, I just kind of set it and forget it. So that is Fundrise in a nutshell. So far, I have to say I'm pretty happy with it. I really can't complain. It's very easy, very hands-off. I really don't have to do anything. And that's kind of a nice break to just kind of diversify my money compared to the physical real estate that I'm used to being invested in. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in getting started with Fundrise, definitely click on the link down below. It really helps out the channel. Otherwise, we will see you guys in the next video.